Hello everyone, here we are again. Let's start part 17 of the project, and as usual I'm gonna start with something that has almost nothing to do with the rest. I wanted to talk to you about animation, because we are gonna have to animate a few things in the rest of the project. So I'm just gonna start simple with just a cube in my scene, and for me, and I'd say for most of the people, animation is about a change in a parameter over time. So for this, we've got at the bottom of our screen what is called the timeline, and this adds a component time to our project. Okay, I'm gonna display this panel here so that it's easier for us. And so to animate, now that we've got time, we need a parameter that will change its value. And let's keep it simple. We're gonna change the location y value on this cube over time. And for this, to just say to the software at this time the value is such a value, we need to add animation keys, or what is commonly called keyframes. To do that, if you hover over the value, you just can press right click on your mouse and choose insert keyframe. Okay, this will insert a keyframe for the 3 axis, but we only want to move our object on the y axis. And what you see here now in the timeline is that we've got a yellow dot that is our keyframe. If we move now to frame 30, for example, we can see that this appears not yellow anymore but green. That means that these parameters are animated, but we are not on a keyframe. If I now move the cube, let's say 3 meters on the y-axis, this axis is orange. This means that the value has been changed, but there is no key for it. So now I can either right click like I did earlier, or what I can do here is go to Object, Animation, Insert Keyframe as well. And if I press the I key on my keyboard, you see I have a lot more options. Okay, and here I can choose location. And now you see all of these parameters are colored in yellow. If I move the timeline in between the 2 keys, this is green to just say it's animated and we are not on the keyframe. And you can see that our cube moves in between these 2 keyframes. This is because Blender interpolates the movement between these 2 positions. Okay, and now if I press play on this, you can see our cube moves. And what's happening now, we are on frame 125, is that here the light gray area indicates our animation range. This is set here. Okay, so it starts at frame 1 and ends at frame 250. I can change that to 30, so that now, if I play the animation, it will loop between 1 and 30, like that, which sometimes is much more convenient to try and test just one part of the animation. Now, another window I wanted to talk to you about. I'm gonna cut that in half. You can see in the animation section of all these windows, we've got the timeline here, but we've got other things like the top sheet, the graph editor, the drivers, and the non-linear animation. Again, I want to keep it as simple as possible, so I'm just gonna show you the graph editor for the moment. Like for the node editor, the controls are similar. If you hold your middle mouse button and you drag, you can pan the view, okay, like this. And if you hold Control on your keyboard, holding your middle mouse button and going left to right will scale horizontally the view, and up and down will scale the view vertically. You can also click on View and say Frame All, so that I can see all of my keys, and you can see that a frame is gray or white usually, but when it is selected, it is yellow. So you've got one here, and you've got one here. I have my 3 axes. The green one is the y-axis, the blue one is the z-axis, and we can't see it, but it's behind the blue one. The red one will be the x-axis, okay? This curve represents the change of the value over time, okay? I have, like for a curve in the 3D world, handles on both keys. I can rotate it, scale it to affect the way the curve goes. We can see at the moment that it has an ease in and an ease out, meaning that our cube accelerates at the beginning of the animation and decelerates towards the end. We can change that if I select all of my keys and go to Key, Handle Type, and choose Vector. This will make the line straight, so now the speed of my cube is the same throughout all the animation. Okay, and this you can change anytime you want. And remember, we have modified the value toward the positive value. That's why the curve is going up, but going down, it's going toward the negative value. So now my cube is going on the y-axis toward the positive values, but at the end here, because the curve goes down, look, it's going a bit backward. I also need to tell you that you can animate almost any parameter in Blender, which is something really good. Okay, next. Something else I need to mention, of course, once a keyframe is selected, you can also move it using the G key on your keyboard, like for an object. Okay, you can't rotate it, but if you, like for a curve, rotate in the graph editor, you will rotate the handle. Okay, and if you scale it, the starting point of the scale is the playhead, meaning that if I select my 2 keys here and I position the playhead on this frame here, the scale will happen towards the right. So only the key on the right will move. If I position it in between, see, both keys moves further away from the playhead if I increase the scale, and closer if I decrease the scale. And another thing I need to mention is that you've got, like in here, a panel on the side, almost on every window, and you can add to a curve a modifier. One which is often used is the noise modifier, and as you can see, it's adding a noise to our existing curve, and this we're also gonna use, meaning that now the animation is a bit erratic like that. One last thing I want to show you as well. I'm gonna remove the noise so that it's clearer and make this a bit more straight like that. at the moment, as you can see. Once the last keyframe is reached, the animation just goes straight. We can select all our curves, go to Channel, and the Extrapolation mode section, choose Linear Extrapolation. This will make the curve not go straight flat, but follow the general direction it was taking before the last key. And we can also change the parameter, for example, to make cyclic, meaning that now I have a cycle of the previous animation that repeats indefinitely, like that. And of course, if I add, let's say, another key here, I'm gonna increase my end frame so that it's still part of the animation. The last way to add a key would be to use this button here, auto keying. This means that whenever I move or change a parameter, Blender will add a key where the playhead is. Now if I move the cube still on the y-axis so that we have only one curve to take care about, I've changed the curve and now the repetition is different. Okay, so that's it for the introduction to the animation system. Okay, let's select all and delete everything. I'm gonna activate shortcut just in case, and now I'm gonna add a plane, and remember we did that sometimes. I want to keep just one vertex, so I'm gonna select 3 of them and delete them, and then position this one in the middle of my scene. Okay, if now I extrude it on the z-axis, this is what I got. Okay, maybe I can move this one in the middle. And remember, we talked about it when we did the section about the texturing. We could use something called displacement to modify a geometry based on an image. And this is great because we've also got a displacement modifier. I've added it to my line, let's say, and now if I choose, of course, a map, I can go there. It's called texture for the moment, and if I go here in the texture properties, this is my map, it's called texture, and I can choose something like a noise. Now if I press play in the timeline, the shortcut is space. You can't see anything, okay, but if I change the coordinate to object and I add an empty and select it as the object for the coordinates, now I can maybe move it on the side, still has no effect, or has it, you can see here, it's starting to move. Okay, so what I need to do, maybe change the direction from normal to, let's say, X. Okay, see now how it's moving. That's great. Space, local, so that's good. I'm gonna leave it here. The mid-level is the offset from where the object was before. So if I set it to 0, it will be around, all the effect will be around the 0 points. Okay. If I move it to, let's say, 0.5, it's gonna be around here. And if I move it to 1, it's gonna be around this point. So I want something like that, maybe. 0.2, I can increase the strength, but maybe not too much. And you can see our lightning is already here. What I can do is add a subdivision surface on top of the display so that it has more definition, like that. Okay, and what I have here is that I'm doing the displacements on the x-axis, okay? So on the y-axis there is nothing. So what I can do is duplicate my displace modifier and change this from x to y, and now I've got something as well on my y-axis. Okay, this is something really simple, but maybe we don't need anything more. Okay, what I can also do for this demonstration is like I'm gonna render this so that we can see if that's great. I'm gonna change this emission color to something bright blue with an emission strength, and have a look at this in render mode. What we can see here is nothing. Why is that? Because this is just a simple edge. We need geometry for it to render. So let's go back here and add something called skin, and this will add thickness to our edge. Okay, now we don't want symmetry. Okay, and what we want is to change the thickness of our object. Let's go back to solid mode. We can go here, and then I have reduce x and reduce y. If I change this, okay, you can see it's changing, so I'm gonna set it to 0, and this part as well, maybe the middle one as well, just a little bit smaller. Okay, and now we've got something that looks like lighting. Okay, it's not great, it's not perfect, but that could do it. What can be done as well, that now because these are edges, I can just branch something. Okay, this is great. Could be even better that we've got here an emission strength. What if we could change it and animate it? I'm gonna set it to 0, or maybe I can just already have a key. Beside most of the parameters, you can see there is a little dot. You can also click on it, and this will add a key to our parameter. The next key I want to add will be a key where it's at 0. Something to see here is that we don't see the keys, but the object wasn't selected. Okay? Now that it's selected, we can see the keys. I'm gonna add a key at 0, and then click again here to add the key, so that you can see it's changing. Okay? Let's go to our graph editor, like we did earlier. Graph editor. Let's have a look at the curve, and that's how it's looking like at the moment. What I can do, duplicate this one on the right, okay, like that, so we get a curve. I can now go to channel, extrapolation mode, make cyclic. Okay, so it goes from 0 to 11.8 like cycle, and then maybe, let's be crazy, add another modifier, a noise modifier, and see how it goes. What I want now here is having a lot of strength like that, maybe as erratic as that. Okay, so let's play it now and see how it goes. Okay, you can see it's flickering, but when it's at 0, when it's in the negative part, like here, the object is black. So that's not what we want. We really want it to be like not existing anymore. So what we can do is copying this channel. Okay, I want this to be animated as well. So here we got emission strength and alpha. Okay, so from here, just select the Emission Strength channel by left-clicking on it, and it will be highlighted in yellow as if it was the active object. You can click once on the A key to select all, then press Ctrl C, and then go to default value alpha, and then press Ctrl V. Then you will have exactly the same keys. What is different now are the modifiers, and to change a modifier from one curve to another, you can go there, copy F modifier, okay, and then click on the other one and choose the best F modifier, and then you will have the modifier pasted here. Oh, they were pasted at a different place. So make sure your playhead is at the same place when before you copy the keyframes. So now they are at the same place. And if I paste the modifiers, both curves should be exactly the same. Yes. And what I can do now is grabbing all the keys and moving them a bit down so that it's also a lot more in the negative values, and have a look at our lighting now. It's still black. So why is that? Because we need to set the blend mode to alpha. And here you go. We've got our lightning. Alright, so now if we talk about the particles, we've used them before in when we model the plant. Okay, I'm gonna start with a sphere, and this tab here, particle properties, allows me to add one or more particle systems. We use them as hairs last time, and here what they do is that they are still attached to the emitter object, like the hair on our heads. But now we are gonna use them mostly like an emitter. In emitter mode, if I play the animation, what it does is that it emits particle. Okay? The important parameters to start are here in the emission section. So you've got number of particles, the start frame and end frame, and of course the lifetime. Basically, what Blender will try to do is to spawn 1000 particles across the 200 frames. To see that better, if I set the end frame to 100 and I only choose to spawn 10 particles, this means it will spawn about 1 particle every 10 frames. And if you look at it in wireframe mode, to see it better, we've got 1 particle at the beginning, frame 1, and if you go to frame 11, 10 frames later, it's spawning the second particle. The same for frame 21. And then the lifetime of the particle, I think you understand it. If I set it to 5 frames, then the first particle, which is here at frame 1, will already die, so disappear at frame 6. Same for the particle at frame 11, it disappears at frame 16. Okay, and this red line here indicates that Blender has calculated the physics of the particle emission. At the moment we are only emitting particles, but let's move the sphere over here, okay, and I will add a plane on the ground. Set it a bit bigger, and then apply the scale. Now, let's maybe move that a bit higher up, and let's play the animation. Of course, we need to give them maybe a bit more life and maybe more particles. It's gonna be better. Okay, at the moment, all the particles are going through the plane. So you have to understand that now that we are doing physical calculations, we absolutely need to tell Blender which object does what. This plane, we don't want it to emit particles, but we want it to be part of the physical world. So you got a tab here, which is called Physics Properties, and then you've got all the types of physical objects. This, we only want it to have collision enabled. Okay, so from now on, everything physics which will collide with the plane will of course have a reaction, like bouncing back. If I now play the animation, you can see that all my spheres are bouncing on the plane. Maybe I should set less of them so that we can see it better, maybe 150. And that's it. Okay? Now they are bouncing. We can give any object some physical properties, and this will affect the simulation. Okay? If I set this guy here and give him again collision type, we'll see the particles are colliding with it. And then the result is up to the physics engine, of course. Not really up to us now. Okay? So, what are the other important options for these particle systems? We've got the source. This tells where are the particles spawned from. So this is set to emit from faces, but we can also have them emit from the vertices or the volume, meaning that they can also spawn from in the middle of the sphere. Okay, let's leave it to faces at the moment. We've got, let's say we've seen it before, the render area, which can allow us to set not a path but an object, or even an entire collection as a reference object. So this can have now the shape of our torus. Okay, and let's simulate that again. Okay, and we can also give them rotation, like random rotation when they spawn, and also if we check here dynamic, this means that they will also rotate if they are affected by something physical, meaning like when they will bounce here, they will rotate. Let's have a look, and you can see it. And the last thing I wanted to show you is the velocity. By default, if you look at our sphere now, you can see that the particles are moving a bit away from the faces. Not sure it's really visible. Okay, but now if I increase this velocity along the normals, and you know what the normals are, of course, based on the faces orientation, normal will be something like this. Okay, so if I increase that to, let's say, 10 meters per second, you will see that the particles will move very fast in this direction. Okay, like that. I'm gonna set the velocity again to 1 meter per second so that they don't go too far away. I'm gonna hide this. I will give them back their shape as a halo. The new things I wanted to add, if I use now an empty object, because we don't need geometry to be shown, this is the physics properties, choose force field, and then we can have a lot of different types. I'm not gonna show you all of them, or maybe when I use them, but I'm gonna show you now the three first: force, wind, and vortex. Let's start with wind, because this is what you will be most familiar with. If I set my object here like that, and increase the strength of the wind, let's rewind, and then play the animation, you can see the particles are affected by the wind. Okay, they go in the direction of the wind. Now let's change it to another type. I'm gonna choose vortex and maybe rotate the object like that. Okay, let's play the animation and see what it does. It's maybe too strong, so let's reduce the strength of the effect right now. You can see particles are moving in a circular pattern, like as if they were in a vortex, and this would be useful if we are doing like a tornado. Flow parameter is a bit tricky. This looks like this affects the way the particles are going further away from this force field. Okay, and the last type of force field I want to show you is the one called force. I'm gonna reduce the flow to 0 and see what this does. At the moment you can't see a lot of things because those particles, they are falling down. What I can do here in the particle system settings is going to field weights. Okay, and this is how much any physics force affects our particles. The first one, which is commonly changed, is the gravity settings, meaning that if I set it to very low value, now particles won't be affected by the gravity, so they will float. In order to see it better, what I'm also gonna do in here, the render settings, I will uncheck show emitter and in the viewport display settings as well, so that now we don't see the sphere anymore. If I add a strength to this force field, you can see that they are going away from it. This repulse or attracts particles, because if I set a negative strength, we'll see particles will flow toward it. Okay, if I duplicate this and give it, let's say, a vortex parameter, this is a lot of trial and error. You can't really do anything really in this case without trying a lot of different values. So I'm gonna go back to the lighting. Remember, this is what we had earlier. Okay, so random lighting. Now, what I'd like to do is add over here a plane. Okay, because probably in the final scene the lighting won't be like just on its own in a dark background. Okay, always applying the scale I can, and what I'd like to do is adding a light. I'm gonna add a point light. Okay, set it somewhere here, and then what I can do, let's do that here, is give it a color that is close to the lighting color, maybe something a bit darker, so I'm gonna pick it from here. Okay, and if I were to give it like a lighting value, it will be something like that. Maybe, yes, something like 60 watts. Okay, I'm gonna deactivate the shadows because I think it's much better without the shadows. Now we've got our lights. What I'd like to do now is to change the power of the light depending on the lightning. So let's grab something like that. Let's copy all the keys from this track, and now because there is no track here, what I need to do first, maybe I can change the values here. What I need to do first is adding a key to one of the parameter we want to change, so that now it appears here, and I can now paste the animation that we've copied from the lightning. Okay, and of course I can also now grab the modifiers, okay, and paste them here, so that now let's have a look at this. This is going up to 20. I still want this to go up to 60 as we had before, so I'm gonna increase the strength of this until it goes at least up to 60. Okay, so we're gonna have the same pattern but not the same strength than our lightning. But now in render mode I'm gonna deactivate this. Let's play it, and you can see we've got a light that turns on and off depending on the presence of the lightning, which is exactly what it's supposed to do. That's perfect. Now we have that. And what is even more incredible, I'm gonna show you. This is here like this. I'm gonna switch to this mode. And what I'm gonna do is now hide this collection, which is called lightning lesson. Okay. And I'm gonna create, let's say, a circle. Let's make it a bit big like that. Apply the scale as always, and then I'm gonna move it a bit up. I'm gonna add a plane as the ground. Okay. And from this circle, what I can do now is adding a particle system on this. Okay. This will spawn particles, but here at the moment it's spawning particles just from the center of the object, so I need to change the source because there is no faces, but I can go and choose vertices. This object has vertices, so now look at this. It will spawn particles from its vertices. Okay. I can now give them no speed value, so they will stay in here. Okay. Let's spawn 100 of them across all these frames and give them a lifetime of 3. Maybe just a bit of randomness, or maybe a lot of randomness. Okay, thus we have. What I want to do now is change the render from halo to collection and choose my collection, which is called lightning lesson. And if I play now, what we have is that it's randomly spawning either the lightning like that, or we can see the light and all. This we don't want. We want it to spawn the whole collection in its entirety. What we can see here is that there is a plane here, and this plane we don't want. So let's remove it like that. Now, when it's spawning the lights and the lightning. Okay? Let's go back to this view. And what we want to do now is in here change the scale of the spawn and of course the randomness. Okay? Something else we can do is adding rotation to it, like this kind of rotation. And now if I play the animation, you can see it's randomly giving rotation to all of these objects, which are lightning objects. And if I now switch to a render mode, this is what we've got. I'd like to, like in the animation, give a thickness to this circle. Okay, so now what I can do is add to the circle a skin modifier like this, and in edit mode, when I have all the vertices selected, I can go in here and change the mean radius x and y to something very low, just like that. Okay, and of course maybe I could give this object a material. I'm going to use material 1, which is our lightning material, and let's have a look at how it is in render mode. Yes, so this will need a bit of tweaking, maybe a handmade tweaking like we did all the things, but you can already, I think, guess the type of result we will have and at which moments of the animation we are gonna use this. So this is, I wanted to say a clever way, and I think I'm gonna say it, a clever way to combine the power of modifiers and normal like objects, which was at the beginning just our lighting like that, with the power of particles, which allow us to randomly spawn a lot of this lighting, and because a lot of the parameters are, as I said, random, we feel like it's like in real life random. Okay, and I think it's pretty cool. So hopefully you like today's lesson, that it wasn't too complicated and that you're looking forward for the other ones. I am. Take care everyone, have a good time, have fun because I'm having a lot of fun myself. I'll see you next time. Bye. Man, with just 2 circles, I had to show you that. It's just, I can't wait to work on this a bit more. Okay, bye.